Welcome everybody. We're here for the first episode of the Ubari Where Your Achievement series, and we're honored to have a very special guest with us today. We have Engie Hassan, founder of Engie Style, here with us. So Engie, we're so happy to have you on here for our first episode. We're going to be launching this series. What we're doing is basically, I'm going to be interviewing people that have been successful in different industries. And why not start with our home base, which is fashion, because obviously we're a fashion brand, and we want to thank Engie because she's been supporting Ubari since we launched and giving us great feedback and helping us out as we grow. So Engie.
Thank you for having me first.
Yeah.
Honored myself. It's really great what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I'm excited. The brand's beautiful, and I think it's gonna be a movement, a lifestyle movement. So I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, like part of our, just to give people a little more feedback is, the reason we're calling this like the Where Your Achievement series is that part of building this brand for me was to say, hey, we want to focus on making clothes for the achievers, right? So people that they're busy, they wake up in the morning, they look at their wardrobe, they're not sure what to wear, right? But if they have our clothes, it's like, hey, I can just pick something out real quick. I can dress things up, I can dress things down. It's versatile. It's like we're trying to minimize that decision-making process for you every morning. And we want to highlight stories of people to inspire others that have been successful in their careers, right? I think, like for me, like I'll draw inspiration from like an athlete or a musician or someone who, I don't know, got a PhD or went to school for something. I'll draw inspiration from anywhere. I think there's just universal like messages or themes that you can draw from to kind of like, you know, like inspire yourself, right? Motivate yourself. So what I like to do is like, you know, I want you to just kind of give a little background on yourself as a stylist and kind of like how you started your career and, you know, what got you to where you're at today.
Lovely. I first want to touch base on what you were saying. That's amazing that you're trying to make it easier for people to pick out things, because my career is to help people shop and personal shop. And I do this a lot in closets to make it very organized that way. Like if you're going out, if you're going to work, if you have meetings, you have Zoom meetings. So now that you have a brand that can be versatile, like that would be it's great for people to have, but also for us to know about, like as stylists and personal shoppers, to make our lives easier. So we go to one brand.
Right.
So as he said, my name is Engie Hassan, and I started my company in January 2010. We're coming up 14 years soon.
Wow, 14 years?
14 years.
That flies by.
I've been in this industry for about 25 years.
Yeah.
And I think I started my career in interning and working for the editorial world, so like the Vogues and French Vogue even. And then I kind of just started to learn more about styling through that avenue. I originally wanted to be a designer, and through school at FIT, I just was exposed to a lot of different things and realized that there's more into this industry than just one aspect. And later on, I got a master's at NYU, and then that's where like I learned the business aspect of fashion and understanding that it's a whole other world than just like making creativity is beautiful stuff. And I like there I had to do an internship, and I did it and studied abroad in Paris, and I just really started to really appreciate my internship there at French Vogue and love what stylists do. They're tastemakers. They, you know, make people look great. They put looks together, and people kind of be like, well, not everybody needs it, just celebrities, but it's like, you know, people sometimes need somewhere to like see what they should be wearing, because we're exposed to so many advertisements, we're exposed to so many brands, we're exposed to so many influencers that we want to look like or be.
Right. And
it doesn't always work for everybody. Like you have to figure out what works and for you, and if you don't have time, we're here. So that's, you know, me. So, and then I came in 2000 and like 8, 9. It's a very long time ago. And I started working at Bergdorf Goodman for the men's store, and I did start off at Tom Ford. That's when he started his men's store, and then gradually started doing other areas and learning everything about menswear, and started to like get on a lot of celebrity clients who I kept after I left there, and just learned the road, like learned everything that had to do with fashion, and really believed that there's so much I could do with it, and just saw kind of too like the culture of fashion and how fashion kind of helps in every direction of like learning and knowing and being people or inspiring people to be better as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a little bit of food coming out here in the middle, so.
Lovely. Oh, thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you. Take that. You can leave that here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
How's the volume? Good? Okay.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
so I guess what I want to get into as well is when was it that you discovered your passion? Like early on, like was it in your childhood? Was it something you discovered later when you were in like high school or something?
Yeah, so
what was it?
For me it was like a mix. Like, you know, when you're young, you have this passion and dream, but you don't know you're actually going to do it. You're just kind of like, you know, I want to be a dancer, I want to be a rock star, I want to be, my mother was, you know, not into fashion, but wore fashion and was a businesswoman, and she's Muslim and she's conservative, so her attire was very important, and she never could find attire that worked for her position as a business owner and made her look elegant and chic and still, you know, be respectfully dressed. So at a young age, I saw the way how she had to go to so many stores and manage it and merchandise it and put it together. And then I always was like, I want to, again, like wanted to be a designer, wanted to create a line for Muslims. Yeah. That would be easy, or just conservative wear, more modest wear. And I actually tapped into that a little bit. I did an evening wear collection in 2010. So it was young. It was like when I was in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and then, you know, it was not something that is so. It wasn't something so exposed compared to now. Like now, if you want to be in fashion, there's so many avenues to learn about it and know about it. Plus, like there wasn't a lot of people within my community in fashion or just within our culture and religion. So it was like my mom wasn't really approving of me to be in fashion. Right. And my dad was like off and on, but he was very supportive to like at least get me to where I need to be. So I was just like in high school, like I only want to go to FIT. I want to be a fashion designer. Which is crazy because you didn't want to be a doctor or engineer. No, I'm just no. They wanted me to be. I didn't. No, I did not want to be a doctor, but I married a doctor in the end. But that's not. It's like nor here nor there. But and what to say is like you go to school and you even like are taught with these nursery rhymes like be a nurse, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Right. I did want to be a lawyer at some point. So and I see those skills coming out sometimes when I need them. But I thought like because it wasn't there. And I did think I was creative, and I saw like during high school I helped people put looks together for prom or help them shop. So I felt like I was like very like I have something there. I don't know what it is. And we didn't know what stylist was again at that time. So then I did like a Saturday school at FIT, and my dad got me a lot of supplies, and then we just kind of like applied to the school. And it was hardships, like just right away, like 9/11 happened, so I got, you know, my first year would have been the year after, like that fall. So my mom was really scared, and she was like, "You're not going." So literally the week I got, actually like a month or two later, I got accepted to FIT. It was like already 9/11 happened, and they're like really scared. They're like, unfortunately, you won't be able to like go. And I remember I was like, I didn't apply to any other schools. Like I didn't apply to any other school. So and I remember
all your eggs in that one basket.
And it was my whole life. Like you know, like just everything, investment, like mind, create, like so. It's like a really hard school to get into for design, not compared to like other areas. And I think it was heartbroken. Like I was just kind of like, and I remember something that someone said to me, like it was my dad, but he was like, it, you know, maybe next year or the year after we could transfer. And like, you know, I was crying. I was like, no, like I can't go. What school am I gonna go to? And it was like, and every school then like we would apply to was like, you go to part-time for Rutgers or you go to William Patterson. And I was like, I don't even know what this is. I don't want to do it. Like, I was like, no. But my dad said to me that like, because he's a business owner, and he was like, you know, there's always gonna be hurdles in anything you do in life. So this is a stepping stone. You know, like I took it in a positive way compared to like where they could be like, this is your sign that you shouldn't be going into fashion. So I didn't get like I did the first year. My freshman year I went to William Patterson, and then it was like I kind of like didn't lose it, but I didn't stay. I just thought it was not going to happen. So I just started to. I applied, and you know, if they already confirmed you coming and then you declined, I thought they're not going to want me then. Like they're going to be like, who is this kid? Like we don't want her. And so then I forgot that I applied. So then I was just like in a different path. I was trying to be a lawyer. And then. So
at this point, had you basically in your mind given up on the idea that hey, you were going to go into fashion? Because I thought
that was a sign from God, like you're not going to fashion. Well, they brainwashed me, telling me that. They're like,
of course.
Look, like I was like, okay, so all that happened, so I don't become in fashion. But I just felt like also scared. Like my mom, like we were really scared at the time, like to be in the city and be in New York, and And I was already picked on in high school, being Muslim all my life, and thrown in a garbage bag, literally. So like for me, I went through a lot being Muslim. So I felt like, and then during 9/11, we had a restaurant, and my brother got hit with a bat, and the place got destroyed.
Wow.
Yeah, and his mouth was shut for like almost 7 months. So for me to see all that, it also scared me to be in the city. I was like very like
legitimate concern. Yeah.
So it was like the dream was like a dream.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was gonna happen. And then there was a lady that her son worked at our restaurant, and she worked for Oscar de la Renta. Yeah. And then she worked for Victoria's Secret as a designer for the main show, the big show. Mm-hmm. And my dad was still like, my dad's like my biggest fan, and he's always like, my daughter wants to be a fashion designer too.
Yeah.
And then she was like, well, she should do it. Why isn't she? You know, and she told him like, I go to the city every day. You know, it is what it is. She'll be fine. She'll be safe. Yeah. And then that same week, I got accepted to go in for my 1 year associates. Yeah. And I think like it came the same time, so I felt like, and she was gonna mentor me. And tell me like which is like something that's so important from a young age. Absolutely. I always say to people like intern, mentor, like even if you're in high school and there's something you love, like call somebody, have your parents, have someone find out someone within that industry to like give you some kind of feedback for stepping stones. Like you might be thinking like this whole other direction is gonna get you there. It's a completely different thing.
Right.
So then then I went to FIT and then started my journey. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I mean that's
with
like
several hardships, but.
Well, I mean it's like a really tough thing, right? Because you feel like something is like snatched from you almost. Right?
Yeah, I was really upset. I was like just kind of like, this is unfair. Like I didn't do this, And yeah, I mean, I think like my first year and on my own, I learned a lot that like, I technically did it really alone. Yeah. I worked at Bergdorf continuing to build my portfolio. And back then it's like you had to have printed portfolios, so they were expensive to like print these portfolios. And everything you did, like you always hear the same thing because you have to barter all the time, and you still do till today. Like you do certain things, but there's ways of doing it where you're not like kind of you're exposing yourself the right way, but you're not letting people take advantage of you. Right. So, but I learned just a lot of stuff. Like I remember my second fashion show within the same week, Fashion Week. I had all these amazing stuff. So I was a stylist for the runway. Yeah. And I had to dress the models in shoes, handbags, accessories for whatever the designer brought. So the designer brought his gowns, and we mixed and matched it. And it was in Bryant Park, and I remember like it was yesterday. They, like we had these badges to come in. Back then it was like different than now. Fashion Week is just it's a completely different game. But I remember this was like a huge hardship for me. It was like, so these like makeup artists came in and they pretended they were makeup artists. They weren't. They're con artists. And they came with these like suitcases that were supposed to have makeup in. Yeah. And I'm sitting there. I have a team that we're like, I'm dressing the models, getting things ready. I'm not sitting there and like paying attention to my like stuff. Right. Plus, like we had these badges, and like I saw that the security we have to go through to get the badges. That like it's, you wouldn't think anything. You think you're safe, and there's security and everything. So these women literally took everything, that like the shoes, the handbag, and like literally left with it.
That's crazy.
My first year in, and I remember it was like over $100,000 worth of stuff. Oh. My personal stuff, like personal gifts from like when I worked in internships and in magazines. It was like
that's awful.
Beautiful, and so like you get these gifts because people want to build stylist or kit, their wardrobe. Right. So it's like last minute, you have certain things that you put on clients, or you have your staple pieces. So I remember that was like, for me, like we watched a videotape. They were doing it when we were there, and I was just like, part of me was just kind of like, it was surreal for me. And then another part of it was like very hurtful because it was just like, what am I gonna do now? Like, And then I commute, so like the whole car ride. I remember this was like really important because I remember the whole car ride. I was like saying like, why? What did I do? Like, why? Like, all these like maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. But I'm learning like it's another stepping stone where you have to learn. Because this happens a lot in the industry, like people literally come here to like rob, different ways, and like, or they're inventing Annas, I call them. They're like, pretend they're somebody. Yeah. So, so then like I kind of wanted to give up, and I remember like a Vogue editor, she was like a good friend of mine, and she, we went through the motions to like do the proper stuff to try to get it back, and it was just so much energy to try to do all that, it just couldn't work. So then, she was kind enough to give me a couple more pieces, and then she was just kind of like, you've learned your lesson, and this is the way life is. Just make sure you learned your lesson. Yeah. Cross your T's, dot your I's, and make sure that you are your boss. Don't let someone even if you think something isn't going according to plan, you have to be your own boss for your business. And I remember, because that gets used so much. Like sometimes, like if you're working on a project with somebody else and somebody does something, but you're like, okay, but I'm working with other people too. Like another producer might say no, or this. I have to learn to be my own boss and be like, well, I don't want this, or this doesn't seem right, or this is not good. So, but that's one of the things that like comes with the job.
No, I think it's an interesting, or it's an important point, because one of the biggest things that people don't learn on their journey sometimes is, I think early on, and I've done this myself, is you sometimes take things personally when you kind of fall down or something happens, and it's like something that might, like in your case, like in your industry, like there's like con artists and stuff that this happens to, right? My background before I even started law was I was in the music industry. So in the music industry, it's like just full of like, you know, like it's like full of con artists and full of people doing stuff. And there's been times where I've signed deals that I should, you know, maybe shouldn't have signed. And there's maybe, you know, times where I've gotten ripped off or things have happened. And a lot of times you start blaming yourself, like, oh, like why didn't I, you know, why didn't I know this? Why didn't I look out for this? But the reality is, you won't know until you actually go through the fire, right? You don't know until you are actually, you know, you have your feet in that arena. So, and I think it's an important lesson, which is, when those things do happen, it's like, okay, did you learn from it? Did you, okay, now recognize, okay, I know how to kind of.
It's like, did you? I did, but I was very young. So I was 24 at the time. So to me, it's like starting your own business and that kind of, I was very sheltered. So this was like living in Jersey, commuting to Jersey. I didn't live on my own yet. So I didn't live on my own until I got married, literally. So it was like, it's different when you're exposed and you learn little by little. So it's like a big learning experience, you know? But for me, it was kind of like, I did learn, but they're still, I feel like I finally wore those like shoes and really listened to it after like another thing like that happened again. Then I was like, okay, this is it. Like this is not gonna be okay anymore. Like I'm not, and in every aspect. Like I just think like even doing deals with people, I had to have them send a contract and I read it. And to be fair, contracts don't mean anything sometimes. Like I was on a movie and I had a contract and like, it didn't matter. They're like, we're not paying. We have no money right now. And I'm like, what? It's 2 years now. Like, you know? And the good thing is it's like, there's other avenues to do it, but it's like, I at least am doing what I need to do to get where I need to be. And then when things unfortunately have to happen, then, you know, I'll figure it out. But I feel like with clients wise, I've been very lucky. I've been dressed a lot of celebrities that I, and personal shop for them. And I think like,
Can you give the people some background on some of the celebrities, or like who was like your first celebrity that you styled and kind of?
So my first celebrity that I personal shop for was Kanye West, and for me, it was like, so I worked at Bergdorf and he came in, and for me it was kind of like, my goal was just to sell Tom Ford. I was in that boutique, that was my sales, and I wasn't the girl or sales associate that was trying to like grab everybody and everybody. For me it was just kind of like, I felt like they should gradually either come to you or something, but I remember it very well. And it was just like, you know, just after the Taylor Swift fiasco, and then it was like he wanted a new image, and like everybody was trying to sell him anything on the floor. I remember I was watching and they were like, just selling him the most expensive like blazer, and I was the only pretty much girl that worked at that store. They were either like 50-year-old women or boys. It was like a men's store, so most women will just sell at the women's store. So I think for him it was like, get a woman's perspective. So he's like, what do you think? And then like that's where like my business mind came in. I was like, what do you want with this wardrobe? Like, what is your thought process? And I kind of like I did a consultation with him without even knowing. And it was kind of like, what do you want to look like? What do you want to brand yourself like? And then I remember clearly he was saying something along the lines like how Anna went, like he said, that like he doesn't want to be made fun of all the time, but the way he dresses, and that he always gets picked on. And this isn't quote by quote, but like pretty much that was a summary of it. And then I said like, well, it doesn't really matter because like Us Weekly like bothers Gwen Stefani, makes fun of her, and she's a fashion icon. And that's him, quote unquote. Like all that matters is what Anna Wintour thinks of you, and you know, hang out and be with that crew, and that's gonna start making you become, you know, if this is the way you want. He wanted to be like, he was inspired by P. Diddy a lot because he was very well known for his fashion sense. And then we just started to pick up stuff, and it worked very well. Like we, you know, we worked together for a very long time, and it was a great experience. It was really great to me. It was like, I think that really helped me to feel, because like, you know, this was, you know, his album, I think just, it's Kanye West. It was a big deal.
Yeah,
Like, you know, for me, it was a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
Even if you were into rap or not, like, it was, and it was very interesting because that was like where my, like, you know, I felt had women down.
Yeah.
And understood it, not for being a woman, because I worked in the magazines that were very prestigious for women. So having like someone like Kanye with different avenues of his creativity, like, you know, being an entrepreneur, being a rap artist, being just like somebody who was a socialite. It was like, how many looks and personas can you bring on him? So I think that gave me a stepping stone to believe in myself that like men's is a route. And like right now I'm like known a lot for dressing men. I did Lady Gaga. I shopped for her a little bit. I did Miranda Kerr, Aerosmith, just like a lot of other like celebrities within that. And then another niche for me when I started was like, what was I gonna be as a stylist? Because it was so hard to get into. It was like this, you know, big pond, many fish, and it was like, what's good? What's my difference?
What's gonna make you stick out?
Yeah. What's gonna be like? What am I different for? So for me, it was like the personal shopping aspect. So my first, like, and having like, what is she known for? So for me, it was royalty. Like I literally dressed princesses and princes. So it was insane.
Which is really cool.
It was cool. It was cool. It was amazing. I still work with a lot of them, and it was, again, like I got lucky. It was through Bergdorf, and this is why I always tell people, like, work within that field. Like a lot of people always want like one or like after college, I feel like they should already be this huge entrepreneur. And I'm like, you have to like work within it and like learn every avenue of it. You know, like if you're gonna open a restaurant, start as a dishwasher. You know, do everything. Be a waiter, be a hostess, and then like, you know, because you'll learn everything. So I remember like, so my business plan during NYU was a personal shopping service for the luxury and elite, and I wanted to launch it, and that was what Engie Style was. And then of course in my mind I was like, I want to be known in America, and that's more celebrities. Nobody cares about royals. Like, who cares about a personal shopper? But it worked because a lot of the bigger designers wanted sales. So the market crashed at during that time, and it was like, I came in and we're selling like $300,000, $500,000 of wardrobe, buying from them. They prefer, like, you know, that open avenues to like be able to like pull Dolce & Gabbana for my clients. Where like if you're emailing them and you're like a stylist that's emerging, they're like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like they don't even reply. But now it's like, yes, please, and please come to our show, like front row, because you were selling. And they like, it was, I think, where I believed that like I had something that I believed that it worked. Then, because you know, everything goes like a roller coaster. You just have to learn how to pivot. And it was like 2014. And I think it was like the influencer role started to become, you know, started to come, and where people started to believe that they were their own stylist, and everyone thought they were a stylist and a personal shopper. And it started to make like the editors of fashion, the buyers, which is what people sometimes would consider me as, would be not even like sat front row, like where we'd be, or second row, would be like, you know, they had these like influencers in the front row. And then people just wanted, like, even people who hired you still thought that they, even themselves, they could be a celebrity, they could be a royalty, they just still felt like, well, you're not an influencer, you don't know anything, you know? Or they just felt like, you know, like they wanted those people because that was like what was in. And I felt like it helped fashion in certain ways because of like the way everything was going more to tech and everything like that. But I do think it shifted in a way that hurt fashion because of like not having sales for, everything was like gifted to these people. Like, and then a lot of people started to do again the whole like, I'm an influencer too. And it was like, why aren't you buying some things and learning how to build a closet? Like my big thing is like, let's build your closet, let's build your wardrobe, and like, you know, to your own brand, like mixing pieces and having the staples. So then like, you know, I went through something again in 2014 where like I learned, did a fashion show, things didn't go the way it needed to. I got conned. And then
they keep coming back for you.
Oh, they keep coming for me because they're like, this girl's so like naive. Let me just take advantage of her. So through that, like at that point when that happened, I felt like I died. Like I was really depressed for years, like almost a year. I was just like, it was hard because it was like, this was a fashion show, and it was like also it was a Muslim fashion show. I was attached to it. And it was like a lot of people that I hired started to like not want to work with me anymore because they felt like I was tied within her. And then it was just like very hard components because like you have everybody like saying, let's go to the media, let's go to the media, and then like you don't want to do that because it's like you would cause problems more for like for your own people, for yourself, because like I'm Muslim, so my name's attached, and like you know, they don't read. They're
Yeah.
gonna think like I was in on it or
Yeah.
something. But that aside, it was just kind of like, I think like, because my mom was my manager till like that point, and then she was like saying to me like, how did you just allow this to happen? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I try to explain to her, like, in our industry, stylists put everything, like, we technically put everything on our credit card, and then we're
Yeah.
paid back by it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they even give you an advance, but not enough.
Yeah.
So I was robbed like $150,000.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a hell of a con.
It was crazy.
I mean, that's-
It was like, and then it was kind of like a sucker punch. I had
Yeah.
3 employees at that time. It was a real fashion show. We had real models during Fashion Week that
Yeah.
they didn't get paid. The worst part of it, it was like attached to a nonprofit that like the nonprofit didn't know about it.
Wow.
And it was a very big Muslim
Yeah.
nonprofit.
Yeah.
And it was just like trickle. Then I like hired a lawyer. I wanted to go and sue them
Yeah.
so they could catch her.
Yeah.
I hired PIs. It was
Yeah.
like my whole career was put aside because I felt like it wasn't even about my dignity. I just felt like, no, I have to catch this woman because I'm not gonna allow this to happen again. So it
Yeah.
was like 3 months of like not focusing. So now I'm like focusing on the career,
Yeah.
and I had to let go of people who've worked with me for 4 or 5 years. I started off as interns and then finally gradually became employees.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you disappointed everybody,
Right.
you know? And then I just was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm gonna party.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear, like, not
Yeah.
drinking, not
Yeah.
doing drugs, but like,
The disclaimer was there.
Yeah, like seriously, not drink. No, I don't
Yeah.
do that, but I
Yeah.
don't do that, and I still don't. But it was like I wasn't invited to such beautiful events. I was always invited to go to things,
Yeah.
and I never could because I was like work. I
Yeah.
worked like to build this career. All I did was work.
Yeah.
And even if you're invited to a client event, like you
Yeah.
work and go home because you know
Yeah.
the next day.
Yeah.
The princess was inviting me to events. I just would like do
Yeah.
my part and then leave.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go and enjoy everything. Like I'd be invited to opening for restaurants, premieres.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah.
So I decided to do that, and that was like my like. And then what happened was it became like I became an influencer without knowing, because
Yeah.
it was like going to cool things, traveling, going to premieres and opening. And this is like a year where like there wasn't a lot of people on Instagram. There was,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like the way it is now.
Yeah.
So it was like I gradually grew so many followers, not even thinking like I'm doing it. It was
Yeah.
just like me like just giving up
Yeah.
and being like I'm gonna enjoy myself for like a couple months.
Right.
And then people started coming and reaching out to me for like, can you come to this restaurant and give you a review? And I'm like, what? Like, who is this? And
Yeah.
it was amazing. Like, if like you go to eatery, like one huge place opened, and it was like, and Engie Hassan was there too. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and they had like my picture on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I knew I was so like, I didn't want to be an influencer because I thought it was like a bad word. It was
Yeah.
like, I worked so hard to be here in my mind. I was like, why should I be just this person who like posts pictures and outfits all day
Yeah.
and eats all day, like
Yeah.
macaroons?
Yeah.
But then I was like, maybe I can like translate it to be a part of it and be like more of like an editor or a curator, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started to do that, and it did help the business back, and it made me fall in love with the industry again.
Yeah.
Because I was just kind of like, you know, still getting like, you know, like you work so hard, that happens to you, and then you feel like, where do I even start again? Like,
Yeah.
should I even start again? And then you're in debt. Like, how do you recover from that? So I had to be fair and honest, I had to go back and work at start from the beginning. I went
Yeah.
back to a store
Wow.
and had to work there full time. Because,
That-
you know, what am I do?
Does that like for a lot of people, like if they have to go back to like step 1 or step 2 from when they were at like maybe like the height of their
That
career?
was a very high, like that was
That's a humbling
height of my career, yeah.
You know, like do you like how did you process that? Like for a lot of people, it's a very humbling experience. For some people, they might give up. They might go back to like.
I almost
you know,
did. So I like, you know, I kept my mental health in check. So I used to always work out and run, to be fair. But I felt like I tried to make up these excuses in my head and just be like, oh, well, anyways, I live in Jersey, so like this is closer to home, and my mom needs me right now and she's
Yeah.
sick, and like maybe this is a sign that I should change. I need to get married now. I'm like,
Yeah.
God knows how old I was 28.
Yeah.
And that's like when everyone should be getting married.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I started to like work there, but because I picked a store that was in like Short Hills Mall, it's a very well like known
Yeah.
mall, and I picked Bloomingdale's, and they used to do like these pop-up shops for Engie style, like where I would imagine a pop-up shop with your name on it that like
And now
pick like the vignettes of like Mother's Day, what you want to
Yeah.
sell, and now you're back there as like a sales, and yeah, it does kind of like, I remember it didn't bother me until like people would see me there and being
Yeah.
like saying things, and it did
Yeah.
hurt me, like
Yeah.
I'm human.
Of course.
But it was like I had a good mentor, and they were just like, "This is what you have to do, like, or
Yeah.
go work somewhere. But at least you're staying in." Their goal was like telling me, and they weren't even in fashion. This was like
Yeah.
just a businesswoman who's still my best friend, and she was just like, "You're staying within the energy of fashion and learning what's in style. You're getting back to like see what customers are buying. It's a different world now that like, you know, so you're still there. Stake isn't as high, you're not spending so much money going into the city. We have to be practical. We have to be like honest with ourselves. It's, you know, it's like getting shot, you know, a couple times, but it's life, it's reality. Yeah. And again, that's what business is. Like people, you know, and I could have filed, you know, bankruptcy and all that, but I didn't want to. Like it was like my baby, it was my brand. And I wouldn't give up on it. I worked so hard to be there, but I said like, okay, I'll take, you know, she came up with an honest game plan. Yeah. And she was like, do this for a little bit. Yeah. It was a little bit longer, but she said it's gonna be how hard you save. Mm-hmm. And you know, I still wanted to live a good life. I still wanted to like go out a little bit. So like, and I still have to pay all that. Like I'm a person like I don't want debt. Yeah. I want to get out of my business debt. You know, so I want to put towards it. Yeah. So you have to learn a lot of that stuff. But like for me, it was like, so you know, I learned. I saw what the new things were going. They treat me with uttermost respect. I became a little bit more of a personal shopper. Yeah. And then it was like, it was a chapter of the book. I keep saying to myself, like, you know, I have to be, you know, sometimes you have to make fun of yourself and be like, look, it's another chapter in my book. One day I'll come out with a book and it'll make people laugh. Be like, you know, it is what it is.
It is funny because I try to think like that too. It's like, you know, the ability to like kind of make fun of yourself. And obviously when you're in the moment, it's not funny, right? In the moment,
and
it's like.
In the moment, it can be funny.
It can be funny.
To others, not yourself.
I mean, if you can treat life like that, your ability to bounce back from things becomes better. And it's like, because sometimes you have to realize there's certain things that are just out of your control and certain circumstances will happen to you. And
but it's life.
But that's life. That's going to be for everybody. And it might not even be in your career, it might be in your personal life, it might be whatever. It's like, hey, can you just step back and be like, you know, it's kind of funny. Like, it could be a lot worse, right? Yeah. And like, I'm going back to step one and starting off somewhere that, you know, I'm going back to years later. And it's like, oh, like, am I going to fail? Am I going to completely not continue this? And you can. Or you can have, like, I use this term a lot, and it's just undeniable determination. And it doesn't mean that you're every moment, every step of the way, you're like, you know, I'm gonna make this happen, I'm gonna make this happen, I'm gonna make this happen. It's when something bad does happen, or some sort of failure happens, or you fall down, it's how do you get back up from that? How do you ultimately end up, right? Like, like in your example, you're still staying in the world of fashion, right? Even when that happens, you're still like, okay, well, let me evaluate.
I didn't want that, and like I was advised not to. Like, I think for me it was like, again, like where I said in the beginning, like you have to have a core group of people who are the same understanding of the way your life is. Like they understand what your bigger picture is. So they understand you still want to be a mom and you still want to be a wife, but you still want to be a business owner and you have a drive and you have a passion. And they will like be practical with you. This isn't like, oh my, it's okay, sweetheart, it's gonna be fine, or like just give up, like go do this, or go marry some guy and he'll take care. Like it has to be like people in your circle who understand your value and what you want to do, because when it hits that low, you're gonna have everyone else telling you like, you've already done 5 years of this, obviously you're not a businesswoman, obviously you don't know what you're doing, obviously this is another sign that you should quit. Like my own parents said that to me. They after that they were like done with it. They're like, this is insane. You dedicate, like you would miss, you know, holidays, you would miss, like I remember like I missed one Eid and it was like, I made a joke one time, I was like, are you kidding me? I raised so much money for the mask, like at least but like everything they would find, and then you start like, it's not like they're brainwashing you, but like your core, if your core is always telling you to stop, you're gonna, by human nature, probably stop. So like living with my parents, they were just kind of like, this is a waste of your life and a waste of time, and you didn't, if you're still doing this, you're not a businesswoman, you know what you're doing. And you know, like I remember my brother said to me, who was like, you know, some of the biggest business people in the world had biggest downfalls. And I started Googling it. I started like research companies I loved and reading their stories, or designers. And I remember like Zach Posen, like he was one of the first American designers that I actually really appreciated, and he was a big designer, and his career launched pretty much as fast as mine did. Like he got very lucky, his outfit got on to like Naomi Campbell, and boof, usually it takes like 10 to 15 years. He like became famous in a year. And I felt like, for me, I just saw like the way it was in 2004, like the way it grew so quickly at that time for, you know, one person. I thought it was incredible. So, you know, I went back, and then I guess like I still did some stuff. I even had to assist some other stylists, which which is fine. Like I learned a lot, it pushed me, and then it was kind of like, I think one day, it was like 2016. I remember I was working for somebody, and the way like she treated me, and I was like doing so much for her. Like when I like love a brand or a person or work with somebody, I give them all this advice. I'm just like, you should be doing this, and you need to be doing this, but you need to have a social media. Like,
and she's been doing this with Ubari, by the way.
Yeah, like you have to do, like you have to do this. Like, and I think like as a community, we should be doing that with each other.
Absolutely.
Like, how can we grow together? So I felt like the way she was like, the way she said something and did something to me. I remember she hurt me so much. I'm just kind of like, why am I doing this for someone else when I could just do it for myself?
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because I was already still in the field.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Let me see how much I saved and let me just go back out there, you know? And I did. I decided to like go back, and I had to like pivot the company and think, and to be real, it's like, it's not, when you're a business owner, it's not 9 to 5. It's every single day.
Nope.
Like I'm married now. I wasn't married then, and I remember I literally, like when we were talking, me and him, like I had to like let him understand how my industry works, like and my world works in my life. Like he has a very intense schedule, so I'm like, this is perfect. Like he's gonna get it, and he gets it. Like I'm very blessed. And but sometimes there's little things that I don't do that it's like, you know, you again, so you have to like take a second and be like, how are you gonna pivot to like be able to handle this new, new like job as like a wife, and then like I actually got pregnant right away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then I got married like 2019, and then COVID happened. So I was pregnant during COVID, and COVID was like another like you know right before COVID was about to happen. Like I had all these contracts ready to go. I had like 3 celebrity A-lists gonna be on retainer, which is a huge deal. COVID happened. They all just got like, sorry. You didn't even get your down payment, even though you like canceled. It was. But everybody was going through that, you know. But I didn't stop. I remember it was like I delivered my daughter in June 2020. Until that day, we were locked up in March. Locked up. We were like literally locked up in March.
Yeah, we were locked up.
So like I just started thinking like, what am I gonna do? What can I do? What can I like keep the brand going? And like I would be interviewing doctors. I would like on Instagram and doing lives with them just to like continue the growth.
Doing something,
and like also giving back to the community, seeing like, you know, people are on this media page to like they're for some reason. So at least like, and I remember I got like so many people being like, thank you so much, like men, women, kids. Like I didn't like know this, or this really helped me learning this, because like I would have a doctor come and speak if you're prenatal or like postpartum, and during COVID, what things you could do, what you should do. Or just even like what can you do for your kids under the age of 5, or what you could do as like somebody who's a business owner and nothing to do. Like we would do like these little like, and I say we is like I literally would call mentors or interns that I used to work with, like what can we do to like help the community. And then I think like just and then now like I you know, during COVID it was also like what are you gonna do? I got very lucky right before COVID happened that like I started to tap into other areas. And when I was saying like when that woman treated me like with such hurt, I saw on Facebook that like a producer like I really liked wrote like that he was about to film something in New Jersey, a movie, and I was like, why not? So I was like, do you need a costume designer? That's what it's called in film. And then he's like, yes. He got me on a TV. He got me on a movie and a TV show before. Like I used to style for like, this murder mystery. So it was. So I quit like that day. I was like, you know what? I'm done with this. Like I'm not gonna work for her anymore. And I remember the money wasn't that great, like as what it should be, I think. But it was like pretty much what I was getting as an assistant. So I was like, at least I'm gonna be, you know, my own leader again. And have a team and start being in that. And I'm making a movie. And then the movie was with Jeremy Piven, who for me was like, this is Jeremy Piven. Like,
Jeremy Piven's huge.
And I remember like I called him like, did he confirm yet? And they're like, no. I was like, well, I only want to do the movie if he's in. And they're like, what? I was like, well, for that rate, like. But then it was like it was amazing because, I mean, we grew up. Jeremy Piven was like an icon. You know, he still to me still is. But, I mean, Entourage. You know, it was like huge, the man's version of like Sex and the City. It was insane. So even us women were like, where's our entourage? Like, we're going out, you know? So, and again, like it came like paying attention to where things are and reading them. You know, even though Facebook is considered irrelevant, but people still post and trying to like have, I say like to myself, like you know, give yourself the energy and like believe in yourself. So I believe in myself so enough that I can message this producer. And I wasn't worried. He's gonna be like, what are you doing right now? I'm gonna tell him like, I'm working for a stylist as assistant. I didn't care. I was like, I want this, let me try it. And it worked. If I didn't, and I was like, you know, like, should I not? Like, I could have like not done any of that. So that film came out, so we filmed it, we literally wrapped the week, we had to go into quarantine. And then when we got back, so now I had a baby, and it was like, it's COVID, what can I possibly do in this world? I got so like all these movie producers, so during COVID, I guess a lot of stylists left the area. So there was a lot of films being made, and a lot of films were being made in Jersey or within, like, not in Manhattan, but like certain areas, Long Island. And I just kept getting calls of scripts. And I did, like, I remember I was literally, I had like not even 6 weeks of maternity, like for myself. It wasn't even that. I was like reading scripts and getting ready. And I felt like just seeing my daughter being like, I was like, I want her to like grow up with like seeing mom like when she just was born, like still hustling. I don't want her to be like, okay, so she had me and then like I guess
she's like semi-retired
like,
at that
point.
point.
COVID happened, like I want to be like, no matter what, like just gotta keep going. So like it was my inspiration, you know? And then also just my inspiration where like sometimes people just be like, yeah, let's see how like you come out. And you always have people, not like, I don't want to say that they like are mean, they're just like, they just don't understand the industry. So to them it's like, a dime a dozen makes it. How are you going to make it? You know? So
I had like a mentor, right? I've been blessed to have some good mentors, like some older people in the community that were, you know, kind of looked out for me.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, yo, I don't know what to do. So I had a job lined up, and I was like, all right, cool. I just got this. Like, it's pretty much in the bag. COVID hit, hiring freeze. I got nothing, right? So now I'm like, all right, well, I was like, okay, if I'm not going to do this, why don't I just do something myself? Like, nobody's hiring right now anyway. So a lot of times when you don't have a choice or like you just feel like your back's against the wall, sometimes you just end up making a better decision for yourself long term. So then at that point, you know, Tarek and I had teamed up and we're like, hey, let's just do some sort of business together. We're like, all right, we're both lawyers, so why don't we just start a law firm?
That's awesome.
And then we'll do, you know, we'll treat it like a business and then we'll do other things. And I still wanted to do my creative ventures. I still make music. I still wanted to do other things.
So you actually made music?
Yeah, I made music. So just to give you more background so I started making music in high school. I made records. I made records that were like featured in like video game commercials.
That's huge. Yeah. I style a lot of music artists. Yeah. It's a very, very, I think it's the hardest industry.
Music is
even more than styling.
Music is a really difficult industry to break into. And I was making music, and at that point, like up until even law school, my goal was like, hey, I'm just gonna, you know, probably make a living off of music or something music adjacent.
Those jingles make money, right?
Yeah,
like
jingles make money. Yeah,
right?
Of course. And I had, you know.
Did that make you feel proud to do those?
Yeah, I mean it was cool because I made one that was used for a basketball video game, and for me, like, I'm a huge basketball fan, so it was like a huge thing because I think early on, like especially in music, it's like you either think, all right, either I go big and I'm gonna be like Drake famous, or I didn't accomplish anything, right?
100%.
And
I get it.
you learn, and I was fortunate because I worked on the legal side of the music industry. I was working at a record label at Warner Brothers at the time, so I learned a lot of like, okay, what's actually real? What do people actually have? And it's because, you know, when you're a kid, you're just like, okay, you just think about the glitz and glamour. You just see like, you know, what people are flashing online, what people are flashing in music videos or on TV. And once you actually get into the business side of like the industry, you realize, okay, what's actually real? What do people actually have? What do they own? Are they as successful as they seem? Are they living the lifestyle that you actually want? And one of the things I learned, kind of like what I figured out during that transition, was I didn't love the business side of the music industry, and it actually took away some of my passion for like what I could do long term in music. So it kind of helped me readjust, where I was like, okay, let me find what I actually like to do. And what I actually learned was throughout that whole process, where I ended up like starting my own law firm and doing this and doing that and starting different businesses, was I just like creating things from the ground up, whatever it is.
Yep.
Right? And I can put a creative touch on anything, and I'm going to view everything through a creative lens. And fashion came up for me because, you know, a lot of like you mentioned Kanye and Diddy and other people who all kind of like started in music, then like try to branch off into fashion, and, you know, have had successful careers doing that. But I think it's just more of that like creative lens switch, right? So if you're already a creative person, it's going to apply no matter what you do.
Yeah, it does.
And fashion is something I've always been interested since I was young.
It's a culture, it's a movement. It's a
cultural movement.
That music, it's all hand in food.
It all goes together. And I always wanted to make stuff. I always tried to dress a little bit different. So I wanted like,
I mean, you're a rapper, so obviously,
yeah, of course,
you knew you could own it.
You know, I knew I could do it. I could pull it off. But I think one point you brought up was kind of that was really important, was it's like starting from the ground up and like learning on the ground level, like what actually happens in the industry. So even when opportunity came for me to start this clothing brand, it wasn't like, hey, I'm just gonna get to it and like put everything out there. I spent a year working on it. And the reason I did that was because I was like, you know what, out of respect for the industry, I don't want to come in here with my foot watching like, yeah, I'm just gonna be successful. Like, no, I'm gonna learn from the ground up. I'm gonna learn, okay, like, how does this work? How do the trends work? How does the seasons work? How do stylists think? How do designers think? What's their process like? what is the consumer side like? What is the manufacturing side like? So I wanted to learn all of that before I just kind of put Ubari out there. And I think people sometimes don't spend enough time doing that, especially if you have success early on. So like, I know people that had success really early on in different industries, and then, and then things don't work out after that, and they're not equipped to bounce back because they're like, oh, I'm like above that. Like I've already been at the top, so I don't need to know what happens on the ground level. But if you look at like most successful people, they understand how something works from the ground. And you might not be an expert on anything. You have to build a good team, but you don't necessarily you still have to have a baseline understanding of how things happen at each level.
I agree with that 100%. I think if you want to be an entrepreneur, even do well at your own job. Like you don't have to. Everyone doesn't have to be a business owner, but even if if I worked, at any kind of, if I was going to be a lawyer, I would want to learn all the different, from every area of what a lawyer has to work with. If you're doing things with, when you're on the court, or you're starting from doing things through police stations, like where every stepping stone of where a lawyer is going to be, and just understand the process. You know, I think that's important.
So I wanted to ask you about how you kind of built your team out, and then when you start your business, like the most important thing is how do you find the right people to work with that have the best interest of whatever brand or company you're building in mind, and people that you can actually trust to get the job done?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I definitely see a shift in that compared to when I started and now. Like now I'm actually even trying to back in the day with interns, they just got school credit. Like I would gift them, I would take them out, I'd feed them, of course, and like if they paid expenses and give them some token, but then it's like you kind of have to pay everybody now, and I'm even willing to pay like top dollar for an intern, and it's very hard to get them. But how I started was, I always say that my business was successful and started with the team was interns. I had incredible interns. They came from, this was like 2010. For like the first 3 years, I think it was the core team, and they still come back. They've now are associates and they come on big jobs. So I had someone that and look, I did a real interview with everybody, gave them a bunch of questions. The questions were like psychology questions, mental questions. They were like fashion questions. Then there would be like some kind of things of what's going on in the world. And to me, it was like, it's important to know what's going on in the world. So anyhow, there was some people I just connected with, feeling like their passion and their drive, but it wasn't where it's like, I love to shop. I just love brands. It was I really want to be a designer. I know this will help. You could see and I always had the soft spot for people in New Jersey, because I was I understood how the New York interns are always cocky, right? They're like, I'm in New York. New Jersey interns, they're striving. They're like, I need to get out of this, state. I need to work more. So for me, it was such a thing. And then, so for me, it was finding diversity. I wanted to have, and it wasn't just about ethnicity, but though it happened that way. It was kind of having people that could bring in. So we had, I had people that were so I was a personal shopper for R&B and rap. I was a personal shopper for, the urban community, for people who are mothers that are in their 60s, business owners. It's just a range of men, women. So for me, it was a lot of them had to stay within understanding what the brands stand for, because even social media stars, so there'd be my photos and people follow them that follow me, and I wanted them to stay within the brand. And they were okay with that. I was like, do you, but not. No. Do you, but do Engie style. Do it my way.
No,
I think it became a verb, Engie style, our way. But it was we lived together. They literally would come over. We would work together almost 7 days a week. They worked 5. They really dedicated to believe in the brand, and that's why I said it was so hard for me in 2014, because I think they believed in me more than I believed in myself. And it wasn't that they saw the hoopla. They saw, they were CC'd to emails or blind copies. They saw the struggle. They worked the struggle. They saw how they knew the truth. It wasn't they're just they don't get to see. They only see the gloss or work as, and they saw all of it. And I think I was only happy to see all of them are doing something that's incredible now. And when we work on big projects, I have my core team. I have so many interns, but the core people who I feel built this business with me, I always reach out to them, and they're always I just styled Joshua for Beauty and the Beast, and I continue getting this. Amanda's one of my core people. She comes in, and she was with me when I was with Priyanka. So she was my first for that, and she does alterations all the time, and works with me as pulling and helping. Daphne too. She worked with me. She was the fashion director of Engie Style at one point. So they always come back. They have their own lives, their own careers, but they And they're like family. Like they were there for my wedding. They were there for my daughter's first birthday, even though it was COVID. Like, because it's like you have your career, your work family, and then your family you're born into. But I just felt like they were always there for, even till today. They're always like, they're my biggest cheerleaders, but they're always kind of like also like, what do you need us to do so you can make this company keep going? You know.
Right.
Now, you know, you get interns. I feel there's a little entitlement. It's a little bit different. I'm trying to like get people who are not actually only wanting fashion, like they want to learn, you know, marketing or media or even photographers, like people, and they can bring something. Like there's so many components within. We have to be like doing podcasts. We have to be doing images and content, and I get gifted so many gifts. I have to like take nice pictures of them and upload them by themselves or with me. So like finding people who might have a drive, it doesn't have to actually be fashion, and try to bring them in. And now I'm like looking for a full-time person. I wouldn't mind a business partner, because there's other areas like I've been venturing off to in Engie Style, but like a full-time stylist, like a lead associate that can just be my right hand. We get double booked. We were double booked. Last week we were like more than double booked. I could have went to Qatar. I had 2 clients or 3 clients there.
Wow.
For the World Cup, I had 2 clients in LA, and I had 2 advertisements in all the same week. It was like insanity. But luckily, and God bless my clients, like I don't like to use a kid card, and they love the fact that like and appreciate wanting me to be a good mom, but like it's not like I'm like, oh, I have a kid, I can't go, but and you want to go, and it's not because I want to go watch the game, even though you do, but it's like you want to be there supportive. But I feel like a lot of people, because they're in go, if you can organize it and give them, like, it works for some people where I don't have to physically be with them.
Right.
And then I'm like, this is even a plus why I need to keep these clients, because it's like I get more done in a calmer manner, and then it's kind of like you don't have to be on a plane every other day, and still I still can do other things or take my brand to the next line, and hopefully collaborate with designers or become a creative director for a brand or etc. So and then now just kind of like for me,
I guess I've
been having this like epiphany.
What's next for Engie?
So next for Engie Style and Engie, I'm turning 39 this year. Next year I turn 40, which is like a huge thing. And my company will be 15 years next year. So I'm like, wow, it's insane. So I'm like, what am I gonna like? I've been like working with a lot of women who are activists and like philanthropists and men. And I feel like I just feel like, what is this? Like you have this power of fashion. I think so. And like you have the ability to meet people that can make a difference in this world, and you have the resources, and you have a room with people who have money. Like, what can I do to help anybody? But like personally, me, I want to like do something for my community. And when I mean that's like, you know, my Muslim community and Muslims in general. Like, I want it to like, I'm trying my best to figure that out, or just like something with women or with kids, and seeing like how I can do that. It might not be to the capacity of like where I want right this moment, but even with working with like certain people or clients, I'm trying to pick people who have like a mission. Like I want to address people who stand for something, like making a difference in this world, or like, you know, even like it could be in the smallest scale where like, you know, they have a clothing line, but it's, you know, not because it's modest, but like, you know, they're doing everything they can to like build this community of people. Like to me, it means something. Like you're building a community. You're not, you know, just a brand that like uses 4-year-olds to make your clothes. Like, you know, all that stuff is becoming such a bigger thing now for me. And then just kind of like I've been offered so many roles as a creative director for some really established known brands, or come in to do capsule collections, which is something. And I'm just trying to pick like, you know, stepping stones, and like when I see the contract, sometimes it's like it's not as hard or like as in tune. Like you always think like if you're getting that title, you're going to be like doing a lot more. And I'm not saying like I want to do more, but it's like if my name's attached to it that much, like I have to find where it's like a happy ground for me to be a part of it, you know. And just like a lot of brands who need help, I try to like become their brand ambassador and like make a movement. I'm a brand ambassador right now for State Label. And I try to, and they like, you know, their stuff is from artisans in Tunisia, and they really look into the climate change and like really care about all that stuff. And it's very important. So that's pretty much what, you know, and maybe, who knows, maybe we do a collaboration someday soon, right?
I think we will. I think we will.
I think so too.
Well, so like, I just want to thank you for coming on and doing this as, you know, our first interviewee.
Honored, thank you.
You know, I wanted to kick off our Where Your Achievement series with someone really cool like you. I think that, you know, as you said, you want to like do more for your community. I think just by doing what you're doing, you're doing something for your community,
Thank
which,
you.
There's not a lot of Muslims like in that industry. And I think maybe you don't even realize you're an inspiration to many people that are like, oh, that's someone that's
really
like looks like me, or that's someone that has a similar name to me. Like, okay, like that gives me courage to kind of go and do this. Even when we started in fashion, I know Dark had mentioned, he's like, oh, like check out Engie stuff, right? Like this is what she's done with her career. And I'm like, that's an inspiration for us too, right? It's like, hey, there's someone from our community, from New Jersey, that has been in this industry and been down this path, and it's it gives you a level of comfort, like, hey, I can reach out to this person and kind of do that. So we really want to thank you. We really appreciate you having you on and sharing your story and all your struggles, and to get to where you're at today. I think it's an amazing and beautiful thing that you've created so far, and wish you even more success on your journey.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I think you'll be very successful in whatever you want to do going forward.